The Galactic Assembly Hall was the largest building ever made. It sat on Nexus Prime, a planet at the center of known space. Inside, thousands of seats rose like steps in a giant bowl. Every important species in the galaxy sent their leaders here to talk, argue, and make deals. At the very front sat the Velkori. They were giants, 8 feet tall with skin that looked like living crystal. Light moved through their bodies like fire through glass. They could channel energy through their hands and burn through metal with a single touch. For 10,000 years, they had ruled the galaxy. Every species feared them. Every world paid them tribute. When the Velkori spoke, everyone listened. High Commander Thraxus was the most powerful of them all. He sat on a throne made of pure white stone at the front of the assembly. His eyes glowed like blue stars. When he raised his hand, the entire hall went silent. But today, something bothered him. He looked past the hundreds of delegates fighting for front-row seats, past the Kreeth with their 4 arms waving for attention, past the Morellian traders counting their credits, past everyone desperate to be noticed. His eyes found the back row. There sat the humans. Ambassador Park Yuna was a small woman with gray hair and a calm face. She wore simple clothes, while others wore gold and jewels. Beside her sat her young assistant, Lee Jiho. He had quiet eyes and steady hands that typed notes on a basic tablet. They always sat in the back, every meeting, every year, for 300 years since humans first joined the assembly. Thraxus remembered when humans arrived. His father had laughed at them. Soft bodies, short lives, no natural weapons, no special powers. They came from a small blue planet at the edge of the galaxy. Nobody cared about them, and humans seemed happy to be ignored. They never asked for better seats. They never demanded respect. They never showed off military power or threatened anyone. They just watched. They listened. They took notes. Other species mocked them. The Kreeth called them the quiet mice. The Morellians said humans were too weak to matter. Even the small species looked down on humanity. But Thraxus had lived a long time. He had learned that quiet things were sometimes the most dangerous things. Today's meeting ended like all the others. Species argued about trade routes and borders. The Velkori made the final decisions. Everyone accepted because no one could challenge them. As the crowds left, Thraxus stood from his throne. His guards moved to follow him, but he waved them away. He walked up the long steps toward the back of the hall. Park Yuna was still sitting. Lee Jiho was packing their simple bags. They did not rush. They did not seem surprised when a shadow fell over them. Thraxus stood above the human ambassador. He was 3 times her size. His crystal skin cast blue light across her face. 300 years, he said. His voice was deep like thunder in a cave. Your species has been part of this assembly for 300 years. Yuna looked up at him. Her expression did not change. That is correct, High Commander. In all that time, you have never asked for anything, never demanded better treatment, never tried to expand your territory. He leaned closer. Why do your people hide in the back? Yuna smiled. It was a small smile, polite and warm, but something in her eyes made Thraxus feel strange, like he was looking at deep water and could not see the bottom. We do not hide, High Commander, she said. We listen. Listen to what? To everything. She stood slowly. Even standing, she barely reached his chest. The front row is very loud. Everyone talks. Nobody hears. But from the back, you can see all the faces. You can hear all the whispers. You can learn who is lying and who is telling the truth. Thraxus stared at her. No other species spoke to him so calmly. Most trembled. Most begged for his favor. This old woman talked to him like she was teaching a child. Your people are weak, he said. You have no great fleet. No powerful weapons that we have seen. What is there to fear from humans? Yuna picked up her bag. Lee Jiho stood quietly beside her, watching the conversation with careful eyes. You have asked the wrong question, High Commander, Yuna said. Then what is the right question? She walked past him toward the exit. Just before she left, she stopped and looked back over her shoulder. The right question is not what you should fear from humans, she said. The right question is why we choose to sit in the back when we do not have to. Then she was gone. Thraxus stood alone in the empty hall. Her words echoed in his mind. He told himself she was just an old woman from a weak planet. He told himself humans were nothing special. But that night, he could not sleep. 3 days later, a transmission reached Nexus Prime. The Dreth Collective had declared war on a human colony world called New Busan. 50,000 Dreth soldiers were already on their way. Thraxus smiled when he heard the news. Finally, he would see what humans really were. He would watch them beg for help like all the others. He ordered his fastest ship to follow the Dreth fleet. He wanted to see the humans break with his own eyes. He had no idea what he was about to witness. New Busan was a beautiful world. Green mountains rose above golden fields. Rivers cut through valleys where human families had built their homes. 2 million people lived there in peace. The Dreth fleet arrived like a dark cloud blocking the sun. 50 warships, 50,000 soldiers. The Dreth were reptile-like creatures with thick scales and sharp claws. They had conquered 12 worlds in the past century. They believed humans would be their easiest victory yet. Their leader, War Chief Gorax, stood on the bridge of his flagship. He watched New Busan grow larger in the view screen. Behind him, his officers laughed and made bets about how quickly the humans would surrender. Soft creatures, Gorax said. No scales, no claws. This will be over before sunset. Thraxus watched from his own ship, hidden at the edge of the system. He had brought recording devices to capture every moment. He wanted to show the galaxy what happened to species without power. Then a transmission came from the planet. A human face appeared on every screen. It was an older man with short gray hair and a scar across his chin. His eyes were cold and steady. He wore simple clothes, not military uniform. I am Governor Choi Hanul of New Busan, he said. His voice was calm, too calm. Dreth fleet, you are approaching a protected human world. This is your only warning. Leave now, and we will forget this happened. Stay, and your children will sing mourning songs for 1,000 years. The Dreth bridge exploded with laughter. Gorax slammed his fist on his command chair. Did this soft creature just threaten the Dreth Collective? Record this. I want his face saved so we can show it to his corpse. The transmission ended. Gorax ordered the invasion to begin. Landing ships fell from the sky like rain. 50,000 Dreth soldiers touched down near the largest city. They expected screaming. They expected running. They expected terrified humans begging for mercy. They found nothing. The city was empty. Gorax walked through silent streets. Buildings stood untouched. Food still sat on tables inside homes. Vehicles waited in neat rows, but there were no people, not one. Where are they? He growled. His soldiers spread out to search. They checked every building, every basement, every hidden space. 2 million humans had vanished like ghosts. The sun began to set. Thraxus watched through cameras his scouts had placed. He leaned forward, curious. Where had the humans gone? Had they fled underground? Had they escaped on hidden ships? Then darkness came to New Busan, and the humans came with it. They rose from tunnels beneath the streets. They emerged from forests at the edge of the city. They appeared in buildings the Dreth had already searched. They came from everywhere and nowhere. They did not wear bright uniforms. They did not carry flags. They moved in silence through the shadows. And they were all armed. Every adult human on New Busan had military training. This was not a colony of farmers. It was a colony of soldiers who had chosen to grow crops instead of fight wars. but they had never forgotten how to kill. The first Dreth squad died without making a sound. One moment they were searching a warehouse. The next moment, humans dropped from the ceiling like spiders. Quick knives, quiet death. The second squad heard something behind them. They turned just in time to see dark shapes rushing from an alley. Gunshots echoed once, then silence. Gorax received panic calls from all directions. His soldiers were dying. They could not see their enemy. Every shadow held death. "Form defensive positions!" he screamed into his communicator. "Group together! Watch each other's backs!" But the humans had planned for this. When the Dreth grouped together, they became easy targets. Explosions ripped through their formations. Traps that had been buried months ago activated beneath their feet. Snipers fired from buildings that should have been empty. Gorax tried to call his ships for support. The transmission did not go through. The humans had destroyed his communication relays an hour ago. He had not even noticed. Thraxus watched the battle unfold. His crystal hands gripped his throne until cracks appeared in the stone. This was not a battle. This was a hunt. And the Dreth were not the hunters. The night lasted forever for the Dreth. Humans attacked and vanished. They never fought face to face. They never gave the Dreth a fair fight. They used the darkness like a weapon. They used fear like a blade. By sunrise, the fields outside the city were covered with Dreth bodies. Gorax stood with the last 2,000 survivors. His scales were cracked. His officers were dead. Around him, the remaining Dreth soldiers trembled like frightened children. The humans appeared from the morning mist, thousands of them. They surrounded the survivors in a perfect circle. Governor Choi Hanoul walked forward. He looked at Gorax with those cold, steady eyes. "I gave you a warning," Choi said. "You did not listen. Now 48,000 of your soldiers are dead. Take the survivors. Go home. Tell your people what happened here." Gorax looked at the human. For the first time, he understood. These were not soft creatures. These were predators wearing the skin of farmers. "What are you?" he whispered. Choi did not answer. He simply pointed at the sky where Dreth landing ships waited. The 2,000 survivors fled to their ships. They found a message carved into the metal of every hull. The same 3 words repeated over and over. "We warned you!" Thraxus sat alone on his ship for a long time after the battle ended. He played the recordings again and again. He watched humans appear from shadows. He watched them kill with terrible efficiency. He watched them show mercy only when the enemy was already broken. He remembered Park Yuna's words. "The right question is why we choose to sit in the back." Now he understood part of the answer. Humans sat in the back because they were dangerous. They sat in the back because they did not want others to see what they really were. But Thraxus needed to know more. He needed to understand how this soft species had become so deadly. He set a course for Earth. Earth was smaller than Thraxus expected. A tiny blue marble floating in the darkness of space. It looked peaceful. It looked harmless. His advisors had begged him not to come. The High Commander of the Velkori Empire should not visit a minor planet alone. But Thraxus needed answers. The memories of New Busan burned in his mind like fire. His ship landed in a city called Seoul. Tall buildings reached toward gray clouds. Millions of humans walked through clean streets. They did not seem like the shadow warriors from the recordings. They looked ordinary. They smiled. They laughed. Children played in parks while parents watched. A man waited for Thraxus at the landing pad. He was old, perhaps 80 years by human counting. His hair was white as snow. He walked with a cane, each step slow and careful, but his eyes were sharp. They reminded Thraxus of blades hidden in silk. "High Commander," the old man said, "I am Kang Minho. I am the keeper of the archives. I was told you wanted to understand humanity." Thraxus studied the human. This fragile creature did not seem afraid of him at all. "You do not bow to me. Minho smiled. Humans stopped bowing 400 years ago. We decided that everyone stands equal, even before the High Commander of the Valkyrie. A dangerous answer. Any other species would be punished for such words, but Thraxus had not come to punish. He had come to learn. "Show me your archives," he said. Minho led him through the city to an old building made of gray stone. Guards stood at the entrance. They were young men and women with calm faces. They carried no visible weapons, but Thraxus noticed how they moved, like water waiting to become a flood. "No alien has ever entered the archives of Earth," Minho said as they walked inside. "You will be the first. What you see here is our shame and our truth. We do not show it to others because we do not want them to see the monsters we were." The first room held paintings. Thraxus looked at images of humans fighting humans, swords and spears, blood and fire, armies marching across burning fields. "We have always been at war," Minho explained, "since the first human picked up a rock and killed another human for food. We fought over land, we fought over resources, we fought over ideas. Sometimes we fought for no reason at all." They moved to the next room. Here there were photographs. Black and white images of destruction, cities reduced to rubble, humans standing in long lines, their faces empty with suffering. "These are from what we called world wars," Minho said. "Twice in 1 century, our entire planet tried to destroy itself. Hundreds of millions died. We invented new ways to kill each other faster than we invented ways to heal." Thraxus felt cold for the first time in his long life. The Valkyrie had conquered thousands of worlds. They had fought great battles. But this was different. This was not conquest. This was insanity. The third room made him stop breathing. A single image dominated the wall. A mushroom cloud rising above a ruined city. Below it were numbers, deaths, 200,000, time, 1 second. "We split the atom," Minho said quietly. "We learned to create the fire that burns inside stars. And the first thing we did was use it to kill each other." Thraxus stared at the image. "You made starfire into a weapon?" "We made thousands of them, enough to destroy our world 10 times over. We pointed them at each other for 50 years. Children grew up learning to hide under desks when the sirens sounded. Every human alive knew that any day could be their last." They continued walking. Each room held worse horrors. Biological weapons designed to melt flesh, chemical clouds that burned lungs from the inside, machines built only to kill. Humans had invented death in every possible form. "We nearly ended ourselves 17 times, Minho said. "Not attacks from outside, our own finger on the button. 17 times we came within minutes of extinction." Finally, they reached the last room. It was different from the others. The walls were white. In the center stood a simple stone pillar with words carved into it. "We remember what we were. We choose what we will be." 400 years ago, we fought our last war, Minho said. "The last war. We finally broke ourselves completely. When the fires stopped, only 2 billion humans remained from 12 billion. Our cities were ash. Our oceans were poison. We had proven that we were the greatest danger to ourselves." Thraxus read the words on the pillar again and again. "The survivors made a choice," Minho continued. "We created the quiet doctrine. We promised to never lead again, to never stand at the front, to watch and listen instead of conquer and destroy, because every time we led, worlds burned." The old man turned to face Thraxus directly. His eyes held centuries of sorrow. "You asked what humans are, High Commander. We are not peaceful. We are contained. There is a very important difference. Peace means you do not want to fight. Contained means you want to fight very much, but you choose not to." Thraxus felt something he had never felt before. His hands trembled. His crystal heart beat too fast. "If your people were unleashed," he said slowly, "if you stopped choosing to sit in the back row, what would happen?" Minho was quiet for a long moment. "The Velkhori have ruled for 10,000 years because no species could challenge you. You are the apex predators of this galaxy." He paused. "But we are not predators, High Commander. We are extinction events. We do not hunt. We erase. That is why we choose the back row. That is why we stay quiet. Because if we ever truly wake up—" He did not finish the sentence. He did not need to. Thraxus left Earth that night. He did not sleep on the journey home. He kept seeing the mushroom cloud. He kept hearing Minho's words. Contained, not peaceful. For the first time in 10,000 years, the Velkhori had something to fear. And it had been sitting in the back row all along. They came from beyond the edge of the galaxy. The Hollowed were not like any species the galaxy had ever seen. They were not individuals. They were one mind in billions of bodies, gray creatures with empty eyes and endless hunger. They did not want to trade. They did not want to talk. They wanted only to consume. The first world fell in 3 days. The second fell in 2. The Velkhori answered with their full military might. 1,000 warships. 10 million soldiers. They met the Hollowed in open battle with all their power and glory. They lost. The Hollowed did not fear death. When one body fell, the mind simply moved to another. They fought without hesitation. They adapted to every weapon. They learned from every defeat and became stronger. Thraxus stood on the bridge of his flagship and watched world after world turn gray. His crystal skin had lost its glow. His eyes no longer burned with confidence. For the first time in his long life, he tasted despair. 50 worlds fell in the first year, then 100, then 200. The galaxy was dying. Thraxus knew what he had to do. He hated it. He feared it. But he had no choice. He traveled to the Galactic Assembly and found Park Yuna sitting in her usual seat, the back row, quiet as always. Li Jiho sat beside her, watching the chaos with careful eyes. The assembly hall was half empty now. Many delegates had fled or died. Those who remained argued and screamed and blamed each other. No one had answers, except perhaps the humans. Thraxus walked up the long steps. Other species moved away from him. They had never seen the High Commander look so broken. He stopped before Yuna. For a moment he could not speak. His pride fought against his fear. "We need humanity to fight," he finally said. The words felt like knives in his throat. "We cannot win this war alone." Yuna looked at him. Her face showed nothing. No surprise, no satisfaction. Just that calm, deep-water gaze. "You are asking us to leave the back row," she said. "Yes. You do not understand what you are asking." Her voice remained soft, but something darker moved beneath it. "When we fight, truly fight, we do not stop until the enemy is not just defeated. We erase them. Every ship, every world, every memory that they ever existed." Thraxus remembered the archives, the mushroom clouds, the poison oceans, 17 near extinctions. "The Hollowed will destroy everything," he said. "Every species, every world, everything we have built for 10,000 years." Yuna was silent for a long time. Li Jiho touched her hand gently. Some communication passed between them that Thraxus could not understand. Finally, Yuna spoke. "Call Admiral Bay Somi. Tell her the quiet doctrine is suspended. Tell her—" She paused, and something ancient flickered in her eyes. "Tell her it is time to wake up." 3 days later, humanity answered. Ships emerged from hidden bases throughout human space. They had been waiting for 300 years. Their designs were unlike anything the galaxy had seen, sharp and angular, built for one purpose: death. Admiral Bay Somi commanded the fleet from her flagship, the Silent Fury. She was 60 years old with silver hair cut short. Her face showed no emotion. Her eyes were like winter ice. She had trained her entire life for a war she hoped would never come. Now it had come. "All ships," she said into her communicator. Her voice was calm and cold. "The quiet doctrine is suspended. Weapons free. Show them why humanity chose to sleep." The human fleet moved through the galaxy like a blade through flesh. They did not fight like the Valkyrie. They did not seek honor or glory. They fought to exterminate. Their tactics were brutal and efficient. They used weapons that other species had banned centuries ago. Artificially intelligent war machines that hunted hollowed without rest. Biological agents designed to poison only hollowed flesh. Relativistic projectiles that hit planets at nearly the speed of light. The humans had prepared for this. They had prepared for everything. The hollowed adapted to conventional weapons. They could not adapt to madness. Human captains sacrificed their own ships to destroy larger enemies. Entire colonies volunteered to become traps, luring hollowed fleets into killing zones. Soldiers fought to the last breath without hesitation or regret. Thraxus watched the reports with growing horror. The humans were winning, but the cost was terrible. They threw away lives like ammunition. They burned everything in their path. The turning point came at a system called Void's Edge. Intelligence showed that the primary hollowed hive mind lived there, 1 trillion hollowed bodies connected to one central brain. Admiral Somi studied the reports. The system had 12 planets, 3 billion hollowed, heavy defenses. A direct assault would cost millions of human lives. She made her decision in seconds. "Deploy the Star Killers," she said. Her officers hesitated. Star Killers were humanity's darkest weapons, devices that could make a sun explode. They had been built during the last war but never used. "Admiral," one officer said carefully, "there are 3 billion enemy on those worlds." Somi looked at him with those ice-cold eyes. "I know." The Star Killers launched. They flew into the sun at Void's Edge. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the star died. It collapsed inward, then exploded outward with the fury of a dying god. The blast wave consumed everything. 12 planets vanished. 3 billion hollowed burned to nothing. The central hive mind screamed across space as its connection to 1 trillion bodies was severed forever. Other species watching from distant ships felt that psychic scream. Many fainted. Some went mad. Admiral Somi felt nothing. She simply noted the result in her log. "Hive mind destroyed. System eliminated. Acceptable losses. 0 human casualties." One of her officers whispered, "You just killed 3 billion beings." Somi turned to face him. Her expression did not change. "They would have killed 3 trillion. I made the efficient choice. That is what humans do. That is why we sat in the back row. That is why we should have stayed there." She returned to her command. The war continued for another year. Without their hive mind, the hollowed became confused and weak. Human fleets hunted them across the galaxy. Every base was destroyed, every ship was burned, every last hollowed was found and eliminated. Humanity did not stop until the species was extinct. When it was over, the galaxy was safe. But no one celebrated. They had seen what humans could do. They had watched a species erase another species from existence, and they had watched them do it without hesitation. 1 year after the last hollowed died, the Galactic Assembly met again. Nexus Prime had survived the war. The Great Hall still stood, its thousands of seats rising like steps toward the ceiling. But everything felt different now. The air was heavy with memory. The walls seemed to echo with the screams of dying worlds. Species filled the hall slowly. They moved in nervous groups, speaking in whispers. Many seats remained empty. Some species had not survived the war. Others were too afraid to leave their home worlds. The Valkyrie arrived first, as they always did. Thraxus took his throne at the front. His crystal skin had dimmed since the war. The blue fire in his eyes burned lower. He had seen too much. He had learned too much. Other delegates took their seats. The Creeth, the Morellians, the dozen other species that remained. They all chose seats in the middle rows, close enough to participate, far enough to run. The front rows stayed empty. Nobody wanted to sit near the spot where the humans would be. Then the human delegation arrived. The hall went silent. Admiral Bay Somi was not with them. She had retired immediately after the war. Some said she lived alone on a quiet moon. Others said she could not sleep anymore, haunted by the 3 billion souls she had burned. Governor Choi Hanul had returned to New Busan. He wanted to grow things again instead of ending them. Kang Minho, the old historian, had died peacefully in his sleep 3 months ago. His last words were reported to be, "We kept our promise. We remembered what we were." The delegation was led by familiar faces. Ambassador Park Yuna walked with the same calm grace she had always shown. Her gray hair was whiter now, her face had more lines, but her eyes still held that deep-water stillness. Beside her walked Lee Jiho, no longer a young assistant, but a full diplomat. The war had aged him. He had seen things that would never leave his memory. Every eye in the hall followed them. Yuna walked down the center aisle, past the empty front rows, past the nervous delegates in the middle. She climbed the steps slowly, steadily. She sat in the back row. Lee Jiho sat beside her. They opened their simple tablets and prepared to take notes. Just like before the war, just like nothing had changed. But everything had changed. The delegates stared. Some with gratitude for their salvation, many with fear for what they had witnessed, a few with hatred for the extinction humanity had brought. The meeting began. Species talked about rebuilding, about new treaties, about honoring the dead. Normal business for an assembly that had nearly ceased to exist. Through it all, the humans said nothing. They listened. They watched. They took notes, just like always. When the meeting ended, Thraxus did not leave. He waited until the hall emptied. Then he walked up the steps one more time. His footsteps echoed in the silence. Yuna was still there, still packing her things slowly, still showing no hurry. Thraxus stopped before her. For a long moment, neither spoke. "You could sit anywhere now," he finally said. His voice was tired, old. "You saved the galaxy, you could rule it. Every species would bow to you out of fear, if not respect. Why return to the shadows?" Yuna looked up at him. Her eyes held something new. Sadness, perhaps, or maybe just acceptance. "Because we remember what happens when we do not," she said. "We unleashed ourselves for 1 year, 1 single year. In that time, we burned a star. We exterminated an entire species. We became the monsters we always feared we were." She stood and shouldered her bag. Lee Jiho waited quietly behind her. "The front row is for those who wish to be seen," she continued. "We prefer to watch. We prefer to listen. We prefer to keep the monster sleeping." Thraxus looked at this small, old woman. Once he had thought her weak. Once he had thought humanity was nothing special. Now he understood they were the most dangerous force the galaxy had ever known. And they knew it. "What happens if something threatens the galaxy again?" he asked. "Another hollowed? Another extinction threat?" Yuna paused. Something flickered across her face, a shadow of what she had seen during the war. "Then we will wake up again," she said quietly. "We will do what must be done. And then we will return to the back row and try to forget what we are." She began walking toward the exit. Thraxus called after her. "Ambassador, one more question." She stopped but did not turn around. "Should I fear humanity?" he asked. The silence stretched long. When Yuna spoke, her voice was barely a whisper. "You should hope we never have a reason to stand up again, because the next time we leave the back row, we might not be able to sit down." Then she was gone. Her footsteps faded into silence. Thraxus stood alone in the empty hall. He was the High Commander of the Velcori Empire. He had ruled the galaxy for centuries. He had never feared anything. Now he did. He walked back to his throne at the front of the hall. He sat down slowly, feeling the weight of his years. His eyes drifted to the back row where 2 empty seats waited for the next meeting. The humans would return. They would sit quietly. They would watch and listen and take their notes. They would seem ordinary. They would seem harmless. But Thraxus would never forget what hid behind those calm eyes. The most dangerous predator in the galaxy was not the one that hunted. It was the one that chose not to hunt. It was the one that sat in the back row, watching, waiting, keeping itself contained. Because when that predator finally rose, stars died and species ended. Thraxus looked at the empty back row and understood the truth that would keep him awake for the rest of his long life. Humans were not sitting in the back because they were weak. They were sitting in the back because they were strong enough to know they should. And that made them the most terrifying species the galaxy had ever known.